Hey everybody, it's Dr. Dave Psychiatry. Thanks for coming to the YouTube channel today. Reminding you once again that if medication fixes your problem, that makes it a medical problem, not a mental problem. I hope that's encouraging to you. Today is my 100th video. So if you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I talk a lot about different topics. Sometimes I try to be encouraging, sometimes I try to be educational. Today I'm going to actually just reflect on what it's like to have made 100 videos, today being the 100th. So I'm not really talking about medicine or patients today, except the topics will come up, and obviously the stories will happen a little bit as I go through this. But I just want to take a moment and reflect on what it's been like since the summer of 2024, when I made the decision to start doing YouTube videos. So really, that starts with thanks. And the first person I want to thank is Rick Beato of Everything Music. If you know anything about music and the YouTube universe, Rick is at the time that I met him, he was actually crossing 4 million subscribers. So he's way beyond that. And he is basically the go-to. If you want to see something interesting about music in today's world, learn more about it, hear good interviews, Rick is my go-to. And just through circumstance, I actually met Rick, and he invited me down to his studio, and we got to meet and talk. And I asked him a lot of questions, like, why would anybody want to see a YouTube with a guy like me talking about my stuff? I had concerns about being, old, not a spokesmodel. I'm not Tom Selleck, or for those of you who remember Lyle Waggoner or anybody like that. I'm just a guy who takes care of patients. And I was contemplating what to do with my book. And I asked Rick, I said, honestly, what do you think? Should I publish the book, or should I do YouTube? And without hesitation, Rick said, if you know what you're talking about, and you can talk in front of a camera, then talking on YouTube and producing videos is going to reach far more people than publishing a book. He said YouTube is a far more effective way to reach people than publishing. And I put this in my first video, and if you watch the first video, the welcome to the channel, that story's in there. But it's really proven to be true. And honestly, I'm so glad I'm not a book salesman, because I don't sit across the desk from somebody saying, hey, I've got a box of 200 books I'm trying to sell. Can you write me a check for $35? In the YouTube sphere, I don't have to do that. I can simply allow people to go, and they don't have to pay anything. If they can tolerate ads, if they have the ad-free version, then they pay for that. But they can go to YouTube and they can listen to my book without having to buy my book. And they can listen in chapters as opposed to sitting down and reading the whole thing. So there's been a lot of benefits for me of doing YouTube instead of publishing the book, which in fact I wrote a couple of books that I never published. And I may not. I may someday, but I may not, because the information, I think, in some ways gets out better in this vehicle. So I want to thank Rick. Thank you, Rick. If you see this video, thank you for encouraging me to do this. And I don't think that you, Rick, expected that you would help hundreds and maybe more than that people by encouraging me to do this. But in your encouragement for me to do YouTube, there's a lot of people out there that are thanking me for doing this channel. And I credit Rick with helping me get started. So thanks, Rick. Second person I want to thank is Chris Cameron. Chris is a very talented videographer. He's a production guy. He lives in Nashville, Tennessee. He came to my office, worked with me, helped me produce the original 2 videos, and then helped me learn how to do it myself, helped me buy the right equipment, get my own studio. And so here we are. And when we had our crisis where the building burned last April, and I had to make the transition and go to a new office and rebuild the studio, some of you might notice the difference between this studio and last studio, but it's, visually it's pretty close. Chris was instrumental in everything, helping me be technically able to become a YouTube producer. So I guess that's technically what I am, because I make the material and I don't have anybody else helping me. It's just me. I shoot the video. I walk across the hall from my patient seeing office. I come in here, I shoot the video, I take the chip home, I put it in the computer, I do a little bit of editing and clip the front, clip the back, put the sound treatment on, share it as a video, post it on YouTube, and there we go. So that's the workflow, and it's pretty simple, but it was a learning curve. So Chris was very patient. He's a super nice guy, and if it wouldn't have been for Chris, I wouldn't have been able to get this far and make the 100th video. So thanks to both Rick and to Chris for helping me get started. I did make a few notes in anticipation of the 100th video, and I wrote things down. So glancing at those, I just want to say people sometimes say things that are meaningful. And one of them was a guy came in and he said, he looked at my little YouTube table topper that I have that shows the picture of me in the YouTube channel with a QR code. And he said, well, I guess if you can fix a faucet with YouTube, then you can fix your brain chemistry. And I thought, what a wonderful thing to say. How many times have I or have you gone to YouTube for some DIY thing? How to fix a faucet or how to, put something together with something that we do now in today's normal world. We don't go buy books about how to fix a faucet. We watch a YouTube of some guy who knows what he's doing to fix a faucet. So his statement to me that if you're a guy that's reliable, you know what you're doing, you can provide information on YouTube and it can be helpful to people. So thanks for that DIY comment. I'm not really encouraging people to DIY their brain chemistry, but it's absolutely true that if you can get the information that you need to talk to your provider so that you can feel better with a brain chemistry problem, then that's exactly what this is for. And that's the core message, that if you've got a brain chemistry problem, you're not damaged goods, you're not weak, you're not overrun, you're not overwrought, you're not stressed out. If you've got a brain chemistry problem, which is proven by you responding well to medication, that makes it a medical problem, not a mental problem. And that's really become the mantra of the channel, and a lot of people appreciate that. To the next statement, a patient asked me, why do you think it is that people come back to the channel and some people just watch almost every one of the videos and some people don't? Well, for some people, the channel, I think, is like a lighthouse. I certainly don't provide all the information that is available out there on the internet. In fact, I'm not intending to do that. That's not my role here. My role is to talk to people how I think about how I approach patients with brain chemistry problems and what I actually do in my day-to-day life. Because as I said earlier, my clinical office is right there. I literally come one door over, turn on the camera, turn on the lights, sit down, make a video, and then I go back and I see the next patient. That's what I do in my daily work. And so when you see me making videos between patients, it's because sometimes just things get talked about and they need to be talked about. So the lighthouse concept, people gravitate toward things that I think give them hope. I did a video on this called The Rescue Effect. It's really true. If you have a beacon or a touchstone or something that is meaningful to you that helps you stay connected to what you're doing for yourself, that's important. If you've got other medical problems, if you've got, breast cancer, you've got support groups. If you've got diabetes, you've got nutritional things and stuff that you can look at on the internet to help you. And with brain chemistry, well, people need a touchstone. And I think people that gravitate toward this channel, they're looking for someone who gives common sense answers to straightforward medical problems. And we don't talk about the whole mental health thing. We get straight to the point that if there's a medicine that you're taking that helps you, or is potentially going to help you, it's because you have a medical problem with your brain chemistry. And that's the language that I'm trying to promote. And that's really one of the great purposes of the channel is to help people think and talk differently. Gets to the third point. I'm really talking about what I think. And I had a lot of hesitation when I first started thinking about doing a channel that, well, I'm certainly not the expert in these things. I'm not a biochemist. I haven't developed any of these medications myself. The tools have been developed by the pharmaceutical companies and the scientists that give me the tools after they've been tested through all the requirements of the federal government, the United States, the FDA approval, etc. They go through all that effort and then they give me these tools. And so if you really need to know more information about your tools, about the medications beyond what I give, absolutely there's stuff out there. The thing is, I get lost sometimes. There is so much stuff on the internet today, and now with the advent of AI and what can you really trust and really believe when you see AI sort of formulations of what they've read, the truth is it can be very complicated. So one of the things that I do is I really, in a sense, I dumb things down. I even had a commenter once say, is it really that easy? Is it really so easy that you're just doing trial and error with people? Well, the answer is actually yes. I do basic trial and error methods in the same way that we troubleshoot cars or troubleshoot computers. Do one thing, see what happens. Do the next thing, see what happens. Do the next thing, see what happens. If you're right, build on it. If you're wrong, change your course, do something different. The trial and error process is really what it is. Now, you have to know where to start. You have to know what you're doing. But the point I'm making here is that the videos, when I talk about, if your norepinephrine here, it needs to be here. If your serotonin's here, it needs to be here. If your dopamine's here, it needs to be here. If your GABA's here, it needs to be here. It needs to be here. Getting to the middle as opposed to being outside the lines. The whole talk about the normal range and how we want to get that corrected. Goal number 1, get your chemicals in the middle. And then after that, keep your chemicals in the middle, no changes for at least a year. The basic formula of medical treatment that I use in psychiatry. This is all just how I think about it. So I think when I was starting to do the channel, I thought I have to be totally, inclusive of all this stuff. And the truth is I can't be. I'm one single source. And I'm not the best source for reading about the biochemistry or the FDA approval studies or things like that, because honestly, that's not what I do every day. What I do every day is I talk to people about how they feel, think, and behave, make the assessment about what chemicals might be wrong, and give them a plan to give them a medication that might help them be better. So I'm not the one source information for everything. I'm just talking about how I think of what I do. And I had to become comfortable with that. And patients have encouraged me, yes, doc, that's what we need. When I watch your videos, yes, doc, keep doing that. That's what we need. We need the common sense approach. The other thing I learned is that I don't have to edit a lot. You see, now I'm looking at my notes here, and sometimes I make mistakes. I even had a video I made a couple days ago that my phone went off in the middle of it. So what do you do with that? I could go home and I could spend a lot of time trying to edit out. I actually worried about that a lot when I first got started, that if I said too much or paused, that I should go back and find the ums and clip the ums out and do what they call in the video language is called a jump cut. You see these YouTube videos where the face will be here and then it'll quickly shift there. That's called a jump cut because there's no in between there. I didn't want a lot of jump cuts in my stuff. Plus, I don't really have time. As a guy with a full-time private practice, I literally go home and do this stuff. I take my video home at lunch and play with it at lunch, and then I come back to the office and see patients again. So I don't do a lot of editing, which means sometimes I make mistakes. And honestly, when I make mistakes, I either roll with them or I have to correct them verbally or in the comments section, which leads to the next point. I do make mistakes. Early on, I said something on a video that was just honestly flat wrong, and a commenter called me out about it. It was about really what does Buspar do in its relationship to GABA. So I was talking about GABA and how some people that have GABA shortage, they're nervous about taking medicines like Xanax and Ativan and Valium because they've heard bad things about, getting addicted or, being drunk on the medicines, basically the story of people who shouldn't take the medicine. Well, I made a comment about Buspar, and really I misconveyed that Buspar works in the GABA system. It doesn't. So he called me out, and that was fine because I talked about it and I thanked him, and that was good. One of the things that is true about YouTube is that, and I've heard this from other YouTubers and watched other YouTubes talk about this, that really in this context, I can be wrong. I can say things wrong. I can say the wrong thing, not intentionally. You have to take everything I say as my opinion, and sometimes I can say things that just I might get wrong. But if I do that, the thing is I didn't publish that in a book. And that's one of the great things about not publishing a book is that you go through an entire publication process. You might spend, $5,000 making sure that somebody makes sure there's no typos, that all the commas are in the right space, the periods are all in the right space. You have a bunch of people read your book to make sure that you didn't say anything wrong. And then once you're done, that's it, and it's on paper and it's solid. Well, in the YouTube world, I could say something that is wrong today, and I could have to come back and correct it tomorrow. And the cool thing about this vehicle of YouTube is that I can do that. So if I say something that's questionable, forgive me, call me out, let me know. But if I believe I'm right about it, I'm going to defend it. And that happens all the time with the commenters to say, hey, this guy shouldn't be doing this or shouldn't say that, shouldn't be promoting these medicines. You saw the video about, should this guy be jailed? Should this guy ever give medicine to anybody? Is he just a shill for the pharmaceutical industry? Now, if I'm helping people, and that's the benefit of having done this for over 30 years, if I'm helping people and I know I'm helping people and I have the track record of helping people and the confidence of those people, I'm going to stand my ground. When I'm wrong, I'm going to say I'm wrong. I also learned this. It's okay to be repetitive. I had talked this morning with the gal about that. She said, "Oh, Dr. Holmes, your channel's so helpful. You've helped so many people." And I thanked her. And I said, "You know, sometimes I feel weird about being repetitive." She said, "No, honestly, if you say the same thing in a little different way, you influence people. People hear things differently. And it's okay to say the same thing." And I was really nervous about that when I started the first, 2, 3, 4, 10, 12 videos. I was nervous that I would start to repeat things and that might be a problem. People say, "Oh, well, you said that before." Well, the truth is, people don't watch videos because I know this from looking at how people look at the channel, because the analytics are there for YouTube for the producer to look at. There's people who haven't seen my first 20 videos. Then they've seen the last 30. So being repetitive means I get to cover stuff that they may have missed in other places. And they may never go back and see the first video or the second or the third that I consider to be really, really important. Like if you think about how I looked at it initially when I was first starting off the channel, I thought, man, the first one better be perfect because that's where you're going to make your point. And the second one better be spot on. And the third one must say everything. Well, if those videos have been only viewed by maybe 1/3 or less of the total viewership of the channel, well, guess what? They may never see those. So today may be the opportunity that I get to say something like, "Hey, if medication fixes you, then you have a medical problem, not a mental problem." I mean, I tried to make that point in video number 3, but if you never saw video number 3, it doesn't matter. So it's okay to be repetitive. My patients encourage me that it's okay to be repetitive, and I'm becoming okay with being repetitive, but it's definitely something I had to get over. So if you see me saying the same thing that I said in a video a month or 2 or 3 or 4 ago, well, I'm not going back and saying, "Sorry, I shouldn't have repeated myself." I'm just going to let it roll and let other people watch it. A lesson that I learned from Chris when he was first getting me started was he basically said, I was nervous about the breadth of stuff that I could talk about. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff that I could talk about. There's a lot of stuff that I still may talk about that I haven't talked about. But Chris's advice to me was stay in your lane. He said, be consistent, talk about what you know, and don't branch into areas that you don't know. And that was really, really good advice. And it sort of calmed me down about, well, can I be all things to all people? Do I have to talk about everything? And he said, no, just stay in your lane. Just do what you're good at. Talk to the audience on YouTube the way you talk to your patients. So I'm trying to do that. Sometimes that gets complicated, gets a little difficult for me because the world happens. Stuff happens in the world, and there's stuff that I want to talk about. Sometimes it even gets political. The most political I've ever gotten was when I talked about Senator RFK. I'm sorry, he's not senator any longer, but RFK Jr. talking about my medicines being as addictive as heroin. And I made a video about that because I was just wrong. And I tried to make the point that people that don't know what they're talking about just really shouldn't be talking about it, especially if they have a big microphone, a big voice. And that particular person has a big voice, and I felt that was a mistake. So I had to talk about that. But I don't want this channel to be in any way political. So there's a lot of stuff happening today. And a lot of people have a lot of emotions about a lot of stuff, but I'm consciously avoiding commenting on that side. I'm staying in my lane and I'm not talking about that stuff. It gets a little more difficult with stuff that I want to react to that people might feel is important to me, like, celebrity dies of an overdose, or celebrity kills himself or kills herself. I did this suicide video. I'm really avoiding right now being a react to events video YouTuber. Some people, Dr. Holmes, why aren't you doing a video about that person committing suicide? Well, I don't really want to become the guy that is the suicide commenter for a couple of reasons. Number one, when that happens, I'm never really going to know what happened. Now, I made my point in the suicide video, and I made my point about my feelings. So if you want to go watch that video, I encourage you to. But in a suicide situation, unless I was personally involved, I don't really know. Now, I know that depression kills people, and I know that people kill themselves when they are depressed, and I know people that just feel hopeless and decide that they're going to put the final nail in the coffin and be done with it. People do that without asking for help, and I know that happens, and I have my feelings about it. But I don't want to be the person that comments on celebrity events in the news, even though when it happens, And the media starts saying things like, "Oh, he was so nice and he was so great and he never let anybody know." Well, I said it in the suicide video. Suicide kills people, and people can't ask for help. So, but I'm currently avoiding being the reaction to YouTuber that comments on that. There are guys that do that, their entire channel. There's a guy, if there's a plane crash, I know who to go to. I go to his thing and I let him talk to me about the plane crash because he's very good at that. I don't want to become that guy. It's not that I don't care. It's just that part of staying in my lane is I'm not going to do that. Now, my next challenge I have is, as a YouTube guy, I get a lot of stuff fed to me. People that say things like, well, hey, here's how to cure anxiety without medicine. Here's how to prevent bad things from happening without medicine. Here's how to eat. Here's the diet that prevents things. Here's how you can never have a panic attack again. Here's how you can diminish some chemical in your body by only eating certain types of foods or taking my supplements. So sometimes I feel like it's in my lane to react to these people that I think are putting out their sketchy information. Maybe not flat out deceptive, but really sort of misleading. And a lot of times it's because they have an agenda, maybe because they're selling stuff. And I'm tempted sometimes to react to those guys, and it's possible that I will in the future. But at this point, I'm avoiding that because I'm trying to stay focused on what I do with my patients. This is not something I do unless somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, Dr. Holmes, do you think I should be taking the supplement?" And then I have an answer for that, which I think I've done videos on that. If I haven't, I can do some. But staying in my lane means I'm going to try to talk to the camera the way I talk to my patients. And that was good advice from Chris. So Chris, thank you. This gets to another thing I wrote down, which is beware of people in scrubs on the internet. People that have scrubs are operating room stuff that I used to wear when I was a surgical med student, surgical trainee and internship, and was learning to be a surgeon. The blue stuff that looks like pajamas, and you wear the hat and you to cover your hair up, which is required in the operating room. But a lot of people that I've seen on the internet, they might even be AI generated. I've seen some that I believe are AI generated of a guy or a gal in scrubs with typically a stethoscope hanging around their neck, the thing you listen to your heart. Well, you wear those clothes and you put that stethoscope around your neck, and it basically visually says, "Hey, I'm a doctor." Well, guess what? They're often not. In fact, I've seen situations where I thought this can't be, and then I go click on the thing and I find, well, in fact, it's not. So, do I look like a doctor because I'm wearing a polo shirt sitting in an office like this? No, but I'm actually a medical doctor with a degree back there, and I am an MD. So, but you got to be careful what you watch on the internet. You also have to be careful of other doctors. There's people out there that are board certified psychiatrists, anesthesiologists. People are saying stuff like, "Hey, yeah, don't take regular medicines, but sure, take ketamine." Super questionable stuff, and really not unless you're a psychiatrist and you're taking care of patients every day, not the source of information that you want to trust to get your health care, either with me or whoever you're working with, to get what you need for your brain chemistry. So unfortunately about the internet, you sort of got to be aware of what you're doing, which leads to the next point. I actually had a patient say this to me the other day. She said, "You're sort of guilty of professional hypocrisy." I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, you're always telling people not to go to the internet and get their information, but you're sending people to the internet." And I said, "Yeah, I'll say you're right. It is a little hypocritical." The problem is, as I said before, especially in the AI-driven world today, there's stuff out there that I think is really questionable. And the truth is, if something sounds a little bit fishy, it probably is. Now, people say that about me. People say that my information is based upon me being a medical doctor using Western medicines, and that I'm basically here just to get people on medicine. Well, honestly, you just have to decide if that's the truth or not. I'm telling you it's not the truth. I'm telling you that I see patients every day, have for over 30 years, come in, tell me how they feel, make a medication choice, have them go run that experiment, come back and tell me how we did, and either helped or not. We either work on it, build on that, or change and do something else. That method troubleshooting brain chemistry is something I've done for over 30 years. So it's got a foundation of success. I don't think you can be successful as a doctor for over 30 years and have that just be something that you're sort of smoke and mirrors. So when people disbelieve this, all I can do is say, well, I wish, if you're watching this right now and you say, I don't believe it, all I can say is it's true. It's true. We take care of people. And if all I do is take somebody's medicine from here to here, or their brain chemistry from here to here with the medicine, that's my work. It happened twice in 2 days that I just saw a guy a couple hours ago. All I did was move his Wellbutrin, his bupropion, from 150 to 300 to hope that his norepinephrine go from here to here. So his picture of depressed, don't care about things, not motivated, don't want to can't get into my job, I'm struggling, suffering, I wish I didn't feel this way. All we did was just go from 150 to 300 of Wellbutrin, and what did his norepinephrine do? Went from here to here, and he said within 2 weeks he felt better. Same story, same medicine, yesterday, different guy. So my talking to the camera confidently is based upon the success that I see every day. And if I weren't seeing the success, I wouldn't be able to do it. Am I a professional hypocrite by saying stay off the internet? Maybe so. But if you're going to go to the internet, either go to my channel or take a source that you really, really trust. So really, really trusting. A patient said this to me. It made me laugh so hard when she came. She said, I like your YouTube channel. You're sort of like the Mr. Rogers of psychiatry. Which, if you don't know Mr. Rogers, you can YouTube Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street and PBS, all that stuff, and watch videos of Mr. Rogers. But he was basically known as a very approachable, easy to talk to, understandable guy that talked to children about stuff. Now, if you knew me personally, you'd understand that I'm actually sort of a cut and dry kind of guy. With my surgical background, if you've got a problem, I want it gone. I sort of want, when I'm interviewing people for how they feel, I ask a lot of yes or no questions. Hey, did this work? Yes or no? Did you have side effects? Yes or no? Was this a good thing? Yes or no? Because the yes or no, the binary, the choice, determines what are we going to do. Are we going to keep building on what we just did, or are we going to shift directions and do something different? So when she called me the Mr. Rogers of psychiatry, I was a little bit taken back by what she meant. But as she explained, what I try to do on the YouTube channel is to make things understandable. And this just reflects what I do when I stop asking questions and I'm actually teaching, which I consider to be the single most important part of a new patient evaluation, because I can figure stuff out pretty quickly, what I believe is wrong with people. And in my mind, I can sometimes have a plan for somebody within 4 or 5 minutes. What I'm thinking I'm probably going to propose, then I have to go validate what my ideas were, and that's the entire evaluation takes that. But sometimes it's fairly obvious when people come in what they really need. But when I'm educating them, it stops being yes or no, and it starts being, okay, if you're here, that causes this. And if that's the cause, then this needs to be here. If this is the normal range and you're here, all I want to do for you is move you from here to here. And that's all my medicines do. And I write that down. I don't write things anymore on the YouTube channel, but in person, I do it the same way that I did in video number 2, which is troubleshooting brain chemistry, which is the white piece of paper and a Sharpie. And I basically just draw out what I think is my concern for somebody. So I will still do something like this. Normal range, that's good. That's not good, too low. That's not good, too high. And talk about the chemicals and what we should do for them. So being simplistic, dumbing down, making things understandable, making things that you can basically just, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's actually, in some sense, it's way more complicated than rocket science, because the human brain is probably the most complicated machine ever devised by anyone or anything. But that doesn't help people. What helps people is being able to have a simple, digestible understanding. The truth is, I sort of learned over time, and it's very true in my current job, in my current office setting, in one morning, I will talk to people that are basically 8th grade graduates of high school, maybe not even that. And 5 minutes later, 10, 15 minutes later, I'll be talking to a PhD rocket scientist who literally designs rockets or does wind tunnel testing or something like that. That's the breadth of people that I talk to. Well, fortunately, the rocket scientists can understand the simple too. So despite the fact that a lot of the things that we work with are really super complicated, and there's all sorts of complicated stuff on the internet that you can look at, my job in my office and for YouTube is to keep it simple. And that simplicity is what caused her to call me Mr. Rogers for Psychiatry, which I actually took as quite a compliment. The pyramid. When I teach people at a first visit, after I do my evaluation and we've got a plan, and I ask people to get their phone out, I'm just going to take you to my YouTube channel. And I do this to every new patient now because I want them to go to the channel just to have it as a resource. And with the QR code, I open it up, help them to sort it, take the first video, to sort from the first to the last. I asked them to watch the first 2 or 3 just to get a sense of what the YouTube channel is as a resource if they want to use it. It's not a requirement for me to watch the channel. I'm not trying to get popular. This is not part of my business. This is just really getting information to people. So it's like an extension of my office in that sense. It is part of my business, but I'm not looking for income. I'm not looking for likes or things like that. I simply want people to have the resource. Now, I am clear that I want to popularize the idea that people are not damaged goods if they take medicine. That if medicine fixes you, that gives you a medical problem, not a mental problem, because I'm just so tired of the word mental health. It just, for so many people, it's a stigma and it doesn't help people. So I'm trying literally just to change that language, and I'm just really hoping that this channel, I'm hoping Google exists in 20 or 30 years. That's actually one of the risks of doing YouTube as opposed to publishing a book. The book in paper is going to exist until somebody throws it away or just falls apart. But the YouTube, my information depends upon YouTube staying viable, so I hope that they remain viable. The pyramid that I talk about when I take people to the channel is this. A pyramid has a tip, and it's got a middle section that's a little bigger, and it's got the bottom section, which is the biggest. The tip of the pyramid is me preaching that if medication fixes you, that makes it a medical problem, not a mental problem. That if you had a lump in your breast, that wouldn't be a breast problem. If you had a swollen testicle, that wouldn't be a testicular problem. I mean, they might be problems, but you wouldn't talk about it that way. And you wouldn't say, well, I'll just pay attention to that later. If you had a medical problem, you would go get help today. And what I'm trying to convince people is that when they're sitting at home saying, I feel awful, I feel anxious, I feel panicky, I'm not sleeping, I get upset, I'm irritable, I'm not myself, what's wrong with me? Well, you might have a medical problem. And if you've got a medical problem, there are medical solutions. So that's why you go to your doctor and you talk to your doctor and you just tell them in the same way that you would if you had a swollen testicle or if you found a lump in your breast. And that's the preachy part of me saying that if medicine fixes you, that's confirmation that you have a medical problem. And I do that now in every video. And that is the tip of the pyramid. Now, what's the second part of the pyramid? What's the channel really for? The second part is to teach people that are asking for the help, to reinforce what they're taking, to talk about why they're taking it, not to give medical guidance because I don't give treatment on the internet to people, but to give them my understanding of why the medicines work, how they don't work, what they do, what they don't do, how I think about them in daily practice with people in my office. So that's the middle part, directed at the patient. The third and the biggest part of the pyramid is the people that are around the patient. So every patient has family, friends, employers. They're surrounded by people. And that bottom layer of the pyramid is the biggest biggest group. Now, initially, when I started the channel, I thought, boy, I just hope people get this information. I hope that it helps them. And I really wasn't thinking about the bottom layer. But it turns out the bottom layer is super important. In some ways, maybe more important than the middle layer. Because the bottom layer is the people around you that are supportive. They're like, hey, you got a doctor. You're taking medicine. Hey, good for you. I'm glad you're not suffering anymore. Hey, I'd like to know more. Now we've got a channel. They go to the channel and they say, hey, I've got a video on what's the difference between Xanax and Valium and Ativan. I thought all those were medicines were a little bit sketchy. Okay, well, go watch the video. Okay, good. Hey, I'm supportive. That's great. And so the channel educates people around my patients. So I love it when patients come and say, yeah, I showed the videos to my wife and she was really into it. Great, because that strengthens what you're doing. You'd want to have confidence with your dentist. You'd want to have confidence with your ophthalmologist when you got your eyes for your eyeglasses. You want to have confidence if you're having surgery. So having confidence in what you're doing is really a positive for the patient and the people around them that love you. Now, what about the other people? The other part of the people around you are the people that can be called the haters. I don't like that term because I don't think that they're really hateful, but those are the people that say, hey, why are you taking that crap? Hey, I've heard that's really addictive. Hey, what's wrong with you? Is something wrong with you? I mean, why do you have to take that stuff? What's wrong? As if you're damaged goods. Well, these are people that are around people all the time. And arguably, I need to speak to them even more than the patient. The patients have already arrived. The patients have already decided that they're going to come in. They've already let me do my evaluation. They've already let me offer medicine. They've already taken the medicine and seen if they got a good or bad result, and they're involved actively in the troubleshooting process. But the people who have never spoken to someone who has turned their life around, which I saw a couple this morning. I saw a gal, she said, Dr. Holmes, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for you. To which I'm quick to say it's not me. It's the medication. I'm glad to be involved, but the medication is what's making you better, because if you were here and now you're here, that's why you feel better. Now, I helped you get that, but I don't get the credit. The medicine gets the credit. Glad I was part of it, but let's put credit where credit is due. The people that have never talked to somebody like that have never seen the difference between serotonin here and here, or GABA here and here. If you never experienced it, or you've never been around someone, you simply don't believe it. And so my videos get put in feeds that people watch. I don't know how the algorithm works, but I wouldn't get commenters if it didn't say things like, this guy is just he's preying on vulnerable people, or no one should take these medicines. I mean, if you say, I saw a comment, no one should take Seroquel unless they have a psychotic condition. I saw two people this morning where Seroquel is working wonderfully for them. And they sort of laugh at, when I tell them the comment, they sort of laugh at that, because they say, well, obviously they don't know that it helps me. So the truth is, we can call people on the channel haters. I don't like the term. I don't call them haters. In fact, I try to respond to them. I try to say to them that look, I'm sorry you had a bad experience with your medicine, if that's what happened. If you've had a terrible experience with medicine, you don't like how you feel and don't like how you felt, and you're frightened, all I can do for you is to say, I'm sorry you had a bad experience. I hope you keep trying. And I've said this in other videos, again, being repetitive, but if you needed shoes and you walked into a store and somebody gave you a pair of shoes and you got blisters, well, you wouldn't say, I'm never wearing shoes again. You try to find another pair of shoes that didn't give you blisters. So for the people that actually see this video, it's a pretty long video for me, if they get this far and they're still paying attention, if you're struggling and you've had terrible experience with medicine, all I can do is encourage you to try again. And that's the bottom layer of the pyramid. This channel is not just for the people that, quote, believe. It's also for the people that, quote, disbelieve. And I call the disbelievers people simply not knowing that a medication that can take you from here to here. I saw a gal this morning, the difference of 20 milligrams of Prozac. She took one extra capsule of Prozac, 20 milligrams here, not doing hardly any good at all. Two capsules of 20 milligram Prozac, took it from here to here with her serotonin, and she walked in and said, I'm a new person. I feel totally different. I feel great. I'm so happy. Thank you for offering that. And I said, isn't it amazing that a tiny little dose of medicine can make such a difference? She said, yeah, it's amazing. If you've never experienced it, you're a disbeliever. You can hear my stories. If you listen to the channel and hear the stories, maybe that will help you some. But if you're struggling and suffering and you disbelieve, all I can do is encourage you to try. Because if your feet are hurting and you needed shoes, you try shoes. Next comment. Saw this gal a couple days ago now, 2 days ago, and I was talking to her. She asked me about how the channel was. I said, yeah, I'm getting ready to do my 100th. And she said, oh, that's really good. She said, I haven't seen that many of them, but I really like you say the thing at the first. I said, she said, yeah, when you say, if medicine fixes you, that makes it medical, not mental. She goes, even a child could understand that. So she was not the same person that called me Mr. Rogers of Psychiatry, but it's the same idea that it's pretty simple concept. It's just a matter of, do you really grasp the concept or not? I was a little reluctant, not reluctant, but I've had to think about it a little bit. Should I say that at the beginning of every video? So I asked her, I said, it's very repetitive. I say it every time. She goes, yes, you should say it every time, because that might be the one video that people watch, and it made me feel 50,000 times better. And I said, okay. She went on to say, when you say that, or when you said that, I don't feel like damaged goods. I don't feel weak. I've had so many people tell me that I should just get over myself, that I should just pull myself up by my bootstraps or just, get over it. And the fact that you really treat me like a medical patient with a real medical solution makes me feel normal as opposed to abnormal. That's the stigma, folks, right there. When she said it makes me feel normal, now none of this is normal. Having abnormal brain chemistry, having your chemistry be here and needs to be here, or here needs to be here, by definition, problems are abnormal. What she was saying was she didn't feel like an outlier as a human being. And that's really, really cool. That's really what I'm doing this for, is to have people understand that, back in the day, if I was going to become a surgeon and do surgery on you. And I honestly, I've done a lot of surgeries under supervision when I was in training. If I did surgery on you and it helped you, well, you weren't looking at yourself as not a human being when you came in. You had an appendix that got infected and you had to have it taken out. Well, are you an outlier in human society because your because your serotonin's here, it needs to be here? Well, for maybe up until we change the entire language, that has been true. And so the purpose of me talking to the camera so I can convey to the world, as opposed to publishing a book, is that you're not an outlier. You're a human being. And you've got a medical problem. And thank God we have medical solutions. And if you don't believe in God, thank in whatever, because we have them. So I'm going to keep saying the same thing every video, and if it's the only one that you see, at least I'll get that message. And some people have joked, people have joked, Dr. Holmes, that should be on your tombstone. Maybe so. The last couple things I'll say are, saw a gal, she was also a couple days ago, and again, people knew I was doing the 100th video, so they were asking me about it. And she said, yeah, I'm really happy that you did this instead of publishing a book, because publishing stops and life continues. That was her quote. Now, it's the how you could say it might be changed a little bit, but here was really what she was conveying to me, is that when you publish the book, that's it. I said that earlier in this video. Once you've gotten all the I's dotted and the T's crossed and all the spaces proper, and it's all printed and bound and in a box, and that's the thing you're going to sell for $35, whatever, which again, I'm just so grateful I'm not a book salesman. But once you do that, that's fixed. Now, what could happen today that changes what I might do tomorrow? All sorts of things. And again, the beauty of the YouTube model is that if something new comes up, I can address it tomorrow and I don't have to wait 2 years to publish another book. So whether or not you watch this as a video, whether or not you listen to this as a podcast, which, by the way, I found out that this format that I'm doing, there's a name for it now. I saw a video. This is called a micro podcast. A full-on podcast. And the reason I make the point is that some people don't even call this my channel. They call it my podcast because they don't even watch it. They just plug it into their car speaker and they drive to wherever they're going and they listen to stuff. And so they listen to the podcast. They never even see my face. They don't care that I'm bald. They don't care that I'm not a spokesperson type guy, good looking and all that stuff that you might hope you'd get on a YouTube video channel. I've got the face for radio, as they joke. So they don't even care. To them, it's a podcast. Well, a lot of times in traditional podcasts, there's people, interviews, microphones, studios, and I'm not doing any of that. So a micro podcast is one person talking about something that they know a lot about and conveying that in a relatively short period of time. And turns out it's about the length of my normal videos, which is 8, sometimes 6, sometimes 12 minutes, but sort of in that zone. So longer than a YouTube short, but not a 1-hour podcast. This one today might be the longest podcast I've ever done. The dementia podcast, or podcast video, the dementia video that I did was about 30 minutes long. And I think, I don't have a clock on me, but this feels like it's longer. But in general, I try to keep the information digestible to a small block of time. And it mimics how I do in my office. People come in, they say, here's how I'm doing, here's my problem, what do we talk about? And that rhythm of 10 to 15 minute conversation is what I emulate with the videos. I might have said that before. I might be repetitive. Not going to try to edit it and change it. Which brings me to my last reflection on what it's like to make 100 videos. And this being 100, and the next one I make will be 101. And my goal is to get to 200 or maybe 300. Who knows how long I'm allowed and able to do this. Because this has been a couple of years, honestly, since I started. So that's actually quite a long time. I learned a lesson this week. When you make a video, turn the camera on. I did an entire video yesterday about this entire thing with the exact same notes. And when I got done, I looked up and the camera wasn't on. So I spent 30, 40 minutes talking, saying stuff that I probably said most of the same stuff today, but this isn't scripted. I don't have somebody writing it for me. I'm not reading a teleprompter. I'm simply talking about stuff. I did glance at my notes because I wanted to hit the high points. But, basic rule of being a YouTuber, if you're going to make a YouTube, turn on the camera. So I'll be turning on the camera between patients and putting out a video every Thursday, as I have done. If you subscribe, you know that the notifications come up on Thursday at 4 in the morning, my time locally. That's when the videos get posted. I shoot them ahead of time and I schedule them because sometimes I'm out of town or things are happening. I anticipate, if I have a medical thing or something going on for me personally that I have to deal with. So I like to stay a couple of weeks ahead. But I will be turning on the camera and making more videos. And again, I want to thank Rick for helping me jump over that very deep but very actually narrow crevasse in the ice to encourage me to actually buy the equipment, set up the studio, and to put my voice out there. And thank you to Chris again for helping me get started technically and making sure that I felt confident in producing the first 12 to 15 videos I did with Chris. So thanks for helping me get started, Chris. Moving forward, I hope to make one every Thursday or release one every Thursday as long as I'm in private practice, and we'll see how that goes. So again, appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for the support, the people, my patients that give me the support. The patients also, that's actually really shouldn't omit that. I apologize for not doing that at the very beginning. If it weren't for the patients that inspire me to talk about stuff, I'd have no material. And if it weren't for the encouragement that people give me to continue, I don't think I'd be as effective as I am, because every day I get some people come in and say, "Doc, thanks for my help." And my answer to them is, well, it's really a privilege to be part of taking care of you. And let's give credit to the medicine. I'm glad to be involved. I'm glad to be helpful. Don't credit me, credit the medicine. And if I get taken out of the picture, if I get hit by a car and I can't take care of you anymore, hey, get the medicine that you need, because that's really what's helpful to you and that's what's helping you. So that's the end of my video 100. And now we'll move on toward number 200. We'll see what happens. I'm Dr. Dave Psychiatry. Thank you for coming to see me today.